Some people have seen where God has brought you from. You don't really understand it. They don't know your story.
You don't know
The things.
Good evening, GX family. Here in the UK and all around the world, how you all doing? It's been a fantastic week. I hope you've been enjoying your week so far. Now, welcome to Michelle Hemmings' Organ Donation Life Stories. As you know, this isn't just about organ donation. There'll be other issues that we will be covering, like people who've had transplants. We'll be talking to transplant doctors, to nurses, diabetes specialists, etc., etc. Now, I would like to introduce to you our special guest, Theo. Okay.
Hello, Michelle. Can you hear me?
Hi, Theo. Is there any chance you could turn your volume up?
Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you. Okay.
Yeah, I'll try and raise my voice.
Okay. Thank you. How you been? How's your week been?
Week's been okay. Thank you very much. We have some
Okay.
unusual good weather for once in Manchester.
Okay. That's great. Okay. Can you tell those listeners your name and whereabout in the UK you live?
So I'm Theophilus Asumu, and I live in Manchester, northwest England in the UK.
Okay. And can you let our listeners know what is your job title?
So I work as I'm a medical doctor. I work in the UK National Health Service, and I'm a consultant in trauma and orthopedic surgery, and that's to do with bones and joints and broken bones, arthritis, that kind of a thing. So that's what I do. I work in a hospital setting, which is just on the outskirts of Manchester. Some of my work is in Manchester and some outside.
Okay, great. That's great to know. Okay, can you tell our listeners what are your views on organ donation?
Organ donation, yeah. I mean, as as a medical doctor, I have my views on organ donation, and that is, organ donation is necessary, because there's a branch of medicine which deals with transplants. But I haven't done any transplants. I'm not a transplant surgeon, and I have very little to do with transplantation, really. Um, and to be perfectly honest, I didn't really give it any much of a deeper thought until possibly the last, well, 10, 15 years when
Okay.
you probably know my wife um,
Oh yes, we
then
interviewed her
ended up
last week.
needing, yeah,
Yeah.
ended up needing a transplant. And that's what brought everything into sharp focus. Um, Previously, I didn't really think about organ donation. I knew about donor cards. I didn't carry one. I didn't feel the need to even consider it because for most of the time, an organ donation means that you're considering what happens after your death. And we're encouraged not to think
Yeah.
about those kind of things,
Yeah.
along with a whole number of other things that you should probably think about, but we just don't, such as, making a will and things like that.
Yeah.
Only when it affected me personally, and it affected, well, not me personally, the family, because the issues to do with organ transplant, I think, affect the entire family and the support system you have around you. And that showed me the necessity, really, of organ donation.
Okay. I'm just going to go over to the chat box, and I've got a lady by the name of Joyroxbury, and she's saying hi to myself and hi to you.
Hi, Joy.
Hey Joy, how you doing? Thank you for being on. Thank you. Okay, right. So in your surgery, do you treat Black patients in your practice? And what are the main? Okay, I know it's in bones and everything, but is that the main condition that you deal with? So do you deal with Black patients in your practice?
Yeah. So my practice is split into roughly 50% of it is to do with people who've had an injury and who come in through the emergency department. So they've fallen, they've broken an arm, they've broken a leg, an ankle, playing football. And the other part are those who have developed some type of pain over time. So hip pain, knee pain, back pain, foot pain.
Okay.
They go to their general practitioner and they get referred to see me in my
Okay.
clinic. So two ways I see patients. One is those who are emergency patients through the emergency department and those who are non-emergency.
Okay.
In terms of the patients who come in as an emergency, broken bones, ankle fractures, fractures around the wrist, you see Black patients just as you would in society.
Okay.
Um, Being that my practice is on the edge of Manchester, Manchester has a large Black population, and that's how the population tends to be spread into the major urban centers. So London, Manchester, Birmingham, you get a lot of uh, Black higher percentage of Blacks in the population than in the rural areas. But when it comes to patients being referred to me for pain, I see very few Black patients. So
Okay.
patients who are seeking um, surgical advice for maybe hip arthritis, knee arthritis,
Mhm.
much fewer, much fewer. I can't remember the last time I'm trying to think, carried out an operation, non-emergency on a Black patient. So there's a disparity there between
Okay.
the emergency side and the non-emergency side.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay. Does the attitude of Black patients differ from other ethnicity?
Um, well, I think it does in terms of the type of treatment they tend to put themselves forwards to have. And so what we know based on the data that is available to us is that the commonest operation we do across the country, which is non-emergency, is hip and knee replacements. And it's often in the news about how many patients are waiting for hip replacements and waiting for knee replacements. Um, but the data also tells us that the proportion of Black people who have hip replacements or knee replacements is far smaller than you would expect from the number of Black people you have in the society. And it's it's difficult to understand why that is. But overall, I find that Black patients, and I say Black patients rather than, Black and ethnic minority,
Yeah.
because I think um, certainly Black patients who, African, Afro-Caribbean patients, I do detect a little bit of hesitancy in having what would be termed as an invasive treatment, which involves
Yeah.
maybe an operation for something that isn't life-saving. So if they have cancer or they have an accident, they will accept an operation because it's necessary. If you ask them to consider having an operation to improve the quality of their life, such as having a knee replacement, then they seem not to be too keen on that. And we're still not sure why this is, but this is something that we've noticed, we've seen, and the figures back that up. And clearly, it's something that we need to address over time.
Definitely. Because as you know, there's quite a lot of people that's waiting under organ donor register at the moment to have a
Yeah.
transplant. So we need more Black people to come forward. So have you got any ideas why us Black people are so reserved?
Well, I think there's a
Or a
short
couple of
answer.
reasons? You might have a couple
Yeah,
of reasons.
there's a short answer and maybe a slightly longer answer. The short answer is no, I don't know why we're so reserved. But the truth is, if we knew why we were so reserved, then we wouldn't have that problem. We would have solved it. But this is
Definitely.
something that, as a health community, the NHS has been trying to deal with this for well over a decade, well over 20 years. Um, so in terms of Black people who put themselves forwards to donate their organs, perhaps as living donors, perhaps as donors after they pass away, it's much smaller percentage than you'd expect compared to, their representation in the population. And the common reasons that are attributed are um, a lack of trust in the system,
Yeah.
cultural beliefs, and religious or faith or a belief system that you would like to go intact. Interestingly, and quite interesting, that the the percentage of people who accept to be donors isn't that high in the Black population. But there are not that many
Yeah.
people in the Black population who don't accept transplant as a treatment. Okay. So we're
Okay.
quite happy to go on a transplant waiting list and we're quite happy to have a transplant, but we're
Mhm.
somewhat hesitant when we're told to consider donating organs. And once again, I think it comes back to the whole idea of if you're going to carry a donor card, you're making plans for after you die.
Yes, definitely.
And it's one of those things which I don't know, we just don't like to talk about. We're maybe a bit more hesitant to talk about that. But the factors, it's multifactorial, and it's the whole engagement with the system. There's some degree of mistrust. Some people tell me if I go on a donor list, then I'll mysteriously vanish and my organs will be harvested, and I'll end up, and that clearly doesn't happen. But the solution really lies in, I think, education and more education and more education. Uh, the last 12 months or so has really opened my eyes as to how education can be carried out
Definitely.
um, in the light of COVID. And a lot of people I know, I mean, in the first few weeks, months of the pandemic, we really didn't know what we were dealing with. We had no idea,
Mhm.
what was where. And that was very evident in the press conferences, and we all learned from the TV, etc. But the Black community, I think, got a lot of information from WhatsApp,
Okay.
and they trusted WhatsApp. And if somebody forwarded a video on WhatsApp, they would listen to it and they'd believe it. And at times COVID was a hoax, it's a 5G issue. And at
Yeah.
times this is why you should wash your hands, this is why you should wear a mask. And this is why
Yeah.
a second mask is actually helpful. And this is how soap destroys COVID, and that's why you should use a mask. And that's why you should wash your hands. Uh, but people got a lot of information that way, and I think it's something that we shouldn't forget when we're trying to pass information out into the community.
Okay. Thank you for that, Theo. I've been trying to raise awareness on organ donation and to encourage people to have that conversation with their families, because organ donation's got this campaign out called Leave Them Certain. So I'm trying to encourage the community out there to just have that conversation with your families, to leave them certain. So when that time does come, at least somebody in your family will know what your decision was when you pass on. Well, thank you for that information.
So I'm sure,
Okay.
Michelle. Sorry, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, you carry on.
I'm sure you probably are a member of one or more WhatsApp groups,
Oh, yes.
and you may often get a video which is sent to you 6 times from different sources,
Okay.
and that happens to me all the time. And I just think that seems to be a trusted way of information, news, education. If you send it to somebody on a WhatsApp, then it's likely to be believed. And and I think TikTok is a growing medium that I see being used for creating videos. And I just think that there's not a lot of information there as to, should someone decide to be an organ donor, where do you go? How do you register to be an organ donor? What does it involve? What about giving even blood? You know, it's these things that you probably have to go out of your way. And I think videos that are put on the NHS blood and transplant website, those are great, but you've got to go there to find them. That means you're looking in the first place. It hasn't just hit you in a passive way. And I think the more you can hit people with just information, this is the process. We need it. This is why we need it. I think that will get the conversation going.
Definitely. Thank you. Okay. Why do you think there is a lack of organ donors in the Black community? If you can just explain to the listeners, I'm just going to be 1 second. If you can just explain the lack of organ donors in the Black community.
Okay. Well, we know that. So I think that there are quite a few things here. First thing is that the requirement for people of Black and African origin to be organ donors is because of the number of people of Black and African origin who are in need of a transplant of some sort. The best match you will get is from somebody who's, well, usually a family member. And if you don't get a match in your family member, then you go to your immediate community because that's where the genes are most likely to match. And if you can't find a match there, you go further and further away. If there are no donors from the Black, African, ethnic, Caribbean community, then people will end up waiting longer and longer. And we know that Black people on the transplant waiting list wait a lot longer than their white counterparts. And what's more is that Black people are more likely to end up needing a transplant because genetically we are more predisposed to things like type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure. And that affects your organs, it affects your kidneys, etc. So I think for that and a host of other reasons, really, it's necessary that the members of the Black community come forward and at least consider transplant, start to talk about it. And not just transplantation, like I said, not just solid organ transplantation. It's also things like blood donation, things like bone marrow transplantation, bone marrow donation, where you actually don't lose anything because these bits of tissue, blood, bone marrow that you donate, your body makes them back fairly quickly over the ensuing few days. And so the question is, how do you get people to engage with the system? A large proportion of Black people in the country are either first generation immigrants or they live in households of first generation immigrants. And so I'm a first generation immigrant. My children were born in the UK, but they take a lot of their they take a lot of their stare as to what they do, their expectations, education, how they behave, etc., from me. And so their attitudes are likely to reflect a lot of their upbringing. Now, people who are first generation immigrants often find it difficult to navigate the niceties of the NHS, which is why, as I referred to previously, the willingness to access certain types of treatment, invasive surgery, which isn't life-saving, they tend to be, a little bit more hesitant in that. So, I think there's no quick and easy fix. And to be perfectly honest, if there was a quick and easy fix, there are people who are much cleverer than myself, and dare I say you, who would have solved this ages ago. But I think there has been some progress made in the last few years, and the number and the proportion of people from the Black community who are donating, putting themselves forward to be donors is increasing. I also think it's important that we try and take hold of this thing ourselves and we deal with the community in a specific way. Because I think what I try to fight against in the Black community, certain beliefs, don't necessarily happen in the Asian or the Chinese community. And so the BAME as a catch-all phrase at times lumps a lot of things into the same basket when you need to dissect and see what affects each community specifically. I'll give you an example. I went to medical school in Nigeria, in Benin, Midwestern Nigeria, and we had an issue there with people not donating blood. And it was a belief that if you donated blood and someone got hold of that blood, it could be used for ritual purposes, which would then mean you'd lose your life in a mysterious way. And that might be something you'd have to deal with when you're dealing with a particular background that you know about. And it clearly won't apply to me speaking to somebody, for instance, from Southeast Asia, from India, from Pakistan, from Bangladesh. And that's better dealt with people who know intimately the experience of first generation immigrants from that part of the world. So I think things like what you're doing, Michelle, is great because you're taking it out to people like yourself.
Thank you. Thank you, Theo, for that. Thank you. I'm just going to ask you one more question because time is getting on now.
Okay.
Do we specifically need Black donors?
Do we specifically need Black donors?
Yes.
Well, we do. It makes life a lot easier if we have Black donors. So when an organ becomes available, there are lots of people on the national database, and that goes through a matching system. And if the organ is matched best to patient 24, 78, and 156, those are the three patients that are contacted in order. The chances that you'll be best match for a non-Black organ, if you're Black, is actually quite low. You may be, but the chances are low. And so people are waiting more than twice as long for an organ, at times years. And so I think we need to think about this. We're talking about donation after death. Donation after death. So it doesn't affect your quality of life or your life expectancy. It's organs that otherwise will not be used at all. So I think if we think about it, have the discussion, and think of what your position would be if you needed a heart, lung, kidney, liver. Would you accept it, or would you say, I'm not too keen because of cultural reasons? So I think we should have those hard discussions.
Yes, because I had no choice. I'm not sure what ethnicity organ I've got, but I know it's a young lady in her early 40s. But I'm just truly blessed that I received the organ at the right time. So I just like to say thank you to my donor, to the Royal Papworth Hospital, and to all my friends and family. Because without them, I wouldn't be as strong as I am now. And yeah, I'm just.
And you're looking great, I must say. You're looking amazing.
Thank you. You should have saw me 3 years ago before my transplant. You would have recognized me. But I'm feeling well now, and I'm doing my best to raise awareness for organ donation. And with your help and Hilaria and with everybody else, I'm sure we will do that. Thank you. So
Thank you
I
very
like
much.
to say, yeah, thank you. I got a few messages from the GX family. They just want to say thank you to you, and also to Donna. He's saying thank you to you as well. So
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
thank you. Hope to see you again. So I'd like to say a really special thank you to Theo, and I hope you all enjoy the program. We've got a whole lot more of special guests coming on in the next coming weeks, and I just like to say thank you to yourselves, to my donor, and to the Royal Papworth Hospital. And I'd just like to say a little encouragement inscription here, which is from Psalms 118, verse 14. The Lord is my strength and my defense. He has become my salvation. And he was there before my transplant, and he still is with me. So bless you all, and we will see you next week. And sorry for the technical difficulties. I'm sure it'll be great next week. Thank you, everybody. See you soon. Bye.
Bye. Thanks, Michelle.
No problem.
Some people have seen where God has brought you from. You don't really understand it. They don't know your story.
You don't know
The
my
things
story.
some people have seen where God has brought you from. You don't really understand it. They don't know your story.